At 03:42 a.m. At this very moment, the Ulan-Ude aviation plant believes it is untouchable. But a Ukrainian kamikaze drone is currently surfing the blizzard just 15 feet outside the assembly hall. In exactly 97 seconds, $250 million of Russian air power will be erased. The facility is the only facility left on Earth that still births new Su-25 frogfoots, the close air support workhorses currently pounding trenches in the Donbass. Taking it out is a strategic necessity, but the math doesn't add up. 3D-400 miles is a logistical nightmare. Storm Shadow missiles don't have the legs. Standard long-range drones would be spotted by the S-400 batteries guarding the Urals before they even got halfway there. To kill this factory, Ukraine didn't need a bigger missile. They needed a smarter shipping label. In a move that would make an Amazon logistics manager weep with joy, Ukrainian operatives didn't fly these drones to the target. They shipped them. 6 modified kamikaze drones traveled 3,000 miles on a civilian train through Kazakhstan, hidden inside standard shipping containers declared as agricultural machinery. They only took to the air from a frozen field just 110 miles from the target. The strike package is simple but brutal. 6 kamikaze drones, 2 high-altitude Bayraktar relays, and 1 massive Siberian blizzard acting as the ultimate stealth cloak. The countdown is already running. At 03:45 a.m., physics dictates that these drones should be dead on arrival. We are talking about temperatures hitting minus 44 degrees Fahrenheit. At that level of cold, a standard lithium-ion battery doesn't just drain. Its internal resistance spikes so violently that the voltage collapses in under 3 minutes. It is the same reason your iPhone shuts down when you leave it in the car overnight, but on a much more expensive scale. To cheat the laws of thermodynamics, Ukrainian engineers wrapped the power units in aerogel, the same industrial-grade insulation NASA uses to keep Mars rovers alive, maintaining a core temperature of 68 degrees while the outside air could freeze jet fuel. But the most brilliant innovation wasn't the heating system, it was the travel itinerary. Flying a drone 3,400 miles from Kiev to Siberia is a suicide mission that requires dodging every S-400 battery across 7 time zones. So, Ukrainian intelligence pulled a move straight out of a drug cartel's playbook. These drones were disassembled, packed into standard shipping containers, and sent on a civilian freight train through Kazakhstan labeled as agricultural machinery. They bypassed the entire Russian air defense network by simply buying a train ticket. The operators only unboxed and assembled the birds in a frozen field just 110 miles from the target, turning an impossible strategic bombing run into a short-range tactical sprint. Now, they are hugging the terrain at just 15 feet. At this altitude, the curvature of the Earth creates a natural blind spot. The mighty Russian radar nearby is scanning for high-altitude bombers, but it cannot see through dirt, and it certainly can't distinguish a composite drone from the millions of snowflakes cluttering its return signal. Moscow locked the front door in the west with billion-dollar missile systems, but they left the back door in the east wide open, assuming the only threats out here were vodka and polar bears. They were wrong. At 03:52 a.m., the swarm enters the kill zone of the Russian S-400 Triumph, a system that NATO pilots discuss in hushed tones. On paper, this is the deadliest air defense shield in existence, a $500 million enterprise-grade firewall capable of tracking 300 targets from 250 miles away. It pumps out enough electromagnetic energy to cook a turkey at 10 miles, and theoretically nothing larger than a bumblebee should be able to cross this line without being vaporized. But every Death Star has a thermal exhaust port, and for the S-400, that flaw is simple geometry. The massive 96L6E radar is designed to hunt eagles at 40,000 feet, scanning the horizon like a lighthouse beam. But because the Earth is round, that beam shoots straight out, leaving a triangular wedge of dead space underneath it. By flying at just 15 feet, the drones are literally hiding in the Earth's shadow. It is like trying to spot a mouse on your kitchen floor using a telescope pointed at the stars. The technology is too advanced for its own good. Then there is the human factor, the one variable no amount of engineering can fix. Inside the heated command vehicle, the radar operator, a 19-year-old conscript making $300 a month, isn't staring at his scope. Why would he? Nothing has attacked this sector in 70 years. He is currently more worried about beating his high score on a mobile game than scanning for an enemy that is geographically impossible. The Russians built a $500 million fortress to stop an invasion, but tonight, They are about to lose it all because they forgot to look down. At 03:55 a.m., the operation shifts into a phase that military historians will later study as the Buryat Blizzard. This is no longer just a drone strike. It is a masterclass in environmental warfare. The weather outside is apocalyptic, with temperatures plunging to minus 42 degrees Fahrenheit and wind gusts hitting 70 knots. By all conventional aviation standards, these are no-fly conditions that should ground every aircraft from here to Moscow. But for Ukraine, this storm isn't an obstacle. It is the ultimate camouflage. The physics of a blizzard provides a cloak of invisibility that no electronic warfare system can replicate. The billions of snowflakes swirling in the air don't just block vision. They scatter and absorb radar waves, creating a massive wall of electromagnetic white noise on Russian screens. It is the visual equivalent of trying to find a specific grain of sand in a sandstorm. The Russian radar operators see the storm clutter on their scopes and filter it out, assuming nothing could possibly be flying through a meat grinder of ice and wind. They are filtering out their own doom. To navigate this chaos, the drones are employing a tactic that borders on insanity: snow surfing. Instead of fighting the 70-knot gale, the flight computers are programmed to ride the wind currents just 15 feet above the ground, using the storm's own kinetic energy to boost their speed while conserving battery. But the real engineering marvel is the connection. The ion storm and static electricity generated by the blizzard have rendered standard radio frequencies useless. A normal drone would be deaf and blind. To bypass this, the Ukrainian team is using a virtual fiber system, a high-bandwidth, free-space optical laser link beamed directly from the Bayraktar TB2s hovering high above the cloud layer. It works exactly like a fiber optic cable, transmitting terabytes of targeting data and flight corrections through the storm, but without a physical wire. It is a tight beam, unjammable lifeline that cuts through the electronic chaos like a sniper's bullet, allowing an operator sitting in a warm container in Poland to thread a needle in Siberia, while the Russians are completely deaf to the conversation. At 03:58 a.m., the operation initiates a sequence that game theorists call a gambit. In chess, this is where you sacrifice a pawn to expose the king. In Siberia, it means sending two perfectly good drones on a suicide run to wake up a monster. Lead drones Alpha and Bravo suddenly break the hard deck. They pitch up from their stealth altitude of 15 feet to a suicidal 300 feet, deliberately lighting up the Russian electromagnetic spectrum like a flare in a dark room. This is a taunt. They are practically screaming, "Here I am!" The reaction is instantaneous. The Pantsir S-1 system guarding the factory, which had been snoozing in standby mode, screams to life. Its phased array radar locks on, and within 2 seconds, two 57E6 command-guided missiles tear off the rails at Mach 4. The physics of this engagement are brutal and short. A $20,000 interceptor meets a $5,000 drone in a kinetic embrace that rains burning fiberglass over the tundra. Inside the Russian command vehicle, the crew is high-fiving. Targets destroyed, airspace clear. They believe the threat is neutralized. They believe they just won. But they didn't win. They just took the bait. By firing those active radar-guided missiles, the Pantsir revealed its exact geolocation to the millimeter. But more importantly, the crew has now mentally checked out, assuming the raid consisted of just 2 lost drones. While the Russians are celebrating, the remaining 4 drones execute the Ghost Protocol. This is the ace up Ukraine's sleeve, a technological leap that renders electronic warfare obsolete. Simultaneously, the 4 surviving birds cut all communication links. No GPS, no Starlink, no radio control. They go completely electromagnetic dark. To a Russian jamming station looking for radio waves to scramble, these drones effectively cease to exist. You cannot jam silence. So how do you guide a blind, deaf, and mute missile to a target in a blizzard without GPS? You give it a brain. These drones switch to an onboard optical navigation system powered by a deep learning neural network. For the last 6 months, this AI has been trained on commercial satellite imagery, thousands of high-resolution photos of the Ulan-Ude facility pulled straight from Google Earth. The drone's onboard camera scans the terrain below, matching the shapes of rivers, roads, and buildings against its internal hard drive 50 times a second. It is essentially weaponized GeoGuessr. The drone doesn't need to know where satellites say it is. It looks at a chimney and says, "I know that chimney. I need to turn left." It is the ultimate irony of modern warfare. Russia's most secretive military site is about to be destroyed because its layout was publicly available on the American internet. Back in the Pantsir vehicle, the celebration dies a sudden death. The radar operator stares at his scope. It's empty. No blips, no static, just the eerie green glow of nothingness. "Where did they go?" he mutters. He reboots the scan. Still nothing. The silence isn't safety. It's the sound of 4 warheads flying in visual flight rules mode, immune to jamming, immune to hacking, and closing the distance at 100 miles per hour. The ghost mode drones are now 45 seconds out, and the Russians are looking for ghosts on a screen, while the real threat is navigating by sight. At 04:00 AM, the final act of this tragedy plays out in high-definition slow motion. The last remaining drone, carrying a specialized 400-pound Thermobaric warhead, isn't aiming for a specific machine. It is aiming for the center of the main assembly hall. The pilot in Poland, watching through a Starlink feed with just 30 milliseconds of latency, whispers a final goodbye. The impact is surgical. The drone punches through the corrugated metal roof like a needle through fabric. But what happens next is a lesson in fluid dynamics and pure cruelty. The warhead doesn't detonate immediately. A millisecond after penetrating the roof, a small precursor charge bursts, dispersing a cloud of highly volatile aerosol fuel throughout the 60,000 square foot facility. This deadly mist seeps into everything. It fills the open cockpits of the unfinished jets, it drifts into the ventilation shafts, and it coats the sensitive CNC machines that Russia can no longer replace due to sanctions. Then the main igniter fires. In less than a second, the entire building transforms into an internal combustion engine. The explosion creates a fireball burning at 4,500 degrees Fahrenheit, hot enough to not just melt the aluminum skin of the Su-25s, but to literally liquefy the airframes into metallic puddles. But the fire isn't the killer, the pressure is. The thermobaric reaction consumes all the oxygen in the room instantly, creating a massive vacuum that is immediately followed by a supersonic shockwave. The roof doesn't just fall in, it is sucked down by the hand of God, crushing the assembly line under tons of twisted steel. Let's look at the balance sheet because this is where the numbers get truly terrifying for the Kremlin. The total cost of this operation, 6 drones, train tickets through Kazakhstan, and a few shipping containers, comes in at roughly $350,000. In exchange, Ukraine just erased 5 brand new Su-25 airframes worth $125 million, plus 3 more in for deep maintenance, and destroyed the only tooling jigs on the planet capable of building them. That is an ROI of over 70,000%. Even the most aggressive hedge fund on Wall Street can't compete with those margins. But the strategic cost is infinite. This isn't just about blowing up planes, it is about supply chain decapitation. This strike joins a growing pattern of Ukrainian deep strike capability, moving from hitting oil refineries in Ryazan to airfields in Pskov, and now hitting the manufacturing base itself in the deepest part of Siberia. By destroying this factory, Ukraine hasn't just destroyed 8 planes, they have effectively grounded the future of Russian close air support. It will take Moscow 18 to 24 months to clear the rubble and rebuild the specialized tooling. For the next 2 years, every time a Russian Su-25 is shot down over the Donbas, there will be 0 replacement coming down the pipeline. Moscow's 24-hour delivery service for air support has just been permanently canceled. When the sun rises over Ulan-Ude, Maxar satellites will capture the image of a massive black crater where the factory used to be. While Vladimir Putin is in Siberia inspecting potato harvest to project stability, his military-industrial complex is burning down behind him. The message is clear. There is no rear guard anymore. The lesson for today is simple. In the modern age, you don't need an ICBM to cripple a superpower. You just need a clever shipping label and the audacity to send your enemy a package they can't refuse. What do you guys think? If you were a Russian commander, how would you even begin to stop a threat that travels via civilian cargo train? Inspect every single shipping container in the largest country on Earth? Let me know your solution in the comments below. I'll pick the 3 smartest strategies to analyze in the next video.